Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So a couple days ago, I gave my projected 2026 Team USA. I went line by line, pair by pair, showed you the goalie tandem, as well as my extras, and went over my snubs that I had. So it's only right that now we look at the other North American hockey power in Team Canada. Team Canada, obviously back-to-back gold medals. They're going to go for the three-peat in Italy in 2026. And not saying this is their weakest team ever, because it's still loaded, but it is definitely the most wide open in terms of a tournament. They're still a very solid team, just more so that the other countries have caught up. So without further ado, let's break it down, starting with the forward lines. First line, I have McDavid, Hyman, and Marner. I know Hyman and Marner aren't the second and third most talented players on this team. But when looking at the style, looking at the previous chemistry, I think Hyman having chemistry with both Marner and McDavid, I think it does make a lot of sense. Obviously, played with Marner for like 3 or 4 years. That top line of Hyman, Matthews, Marner was fantastic, and now McDavid, Hyman, and RNH is like the best line in all of hockey right now. So I think it makes sense with the Connor McDavid. You don't need to stack him with these absolutely insane wingers that I'm going to get to later, mainly on that second line. I think he can obviously carry his own line, and it's not even carrying. He's still playing with Mitch Marner and Zach Hyman. That's a point per game. Zach Hyman, point per game, 35 goal guy. So I think with McDavid, you give him a guy that he's familiar with and another elite playmaker. You have Hyman be that physical pest with the two other elite playmakers, and McDavid's a pretty damn good goal scorer in his own right. I think that this first line makes a lot of sense. The second line is more so the juiced line. You got Sidney Crosby, Nathan MacKinnon, and Connor Bedard. I like the idea of the generational line with the Crosby, McDavid, and Bedard, but I think this makes a lot more sense in terms of balancing out the team. Nathan MacKinnon, fantastic center, one of the most electrifying players in the entire league. Amazing playmaker, amazing skater. You partner him with a goal scorer like a Connor Bedard, and then that seasoned veteran two-way, fantastic high IQ guy like Sidney Crosby. I think this would probably be their best overall line, because McDavid doesn't have the insane talent. But I do like that overall for this Canadian team to balance out their first and second lines instead of putting two of Crosby, McKinnon, and Bedard with McDavid. I think balancing it out is going to be the best move, in this line would arguably be the best line in the entire tournament if Connor Bedard continues to take these next steps and is probably going to be a top 10 player in the entire NHL by 2026. And Crosby has not slowed down at all. He'll probably still be a top 15 player, as well as having the second best player in the entire NHL. I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of balancing it out and in terms of overall play styles. The third line, I went with Mark Stone, Braden Point, and Sam Reinhart. I think Sam Reinhart has definitely earned his spot on this team. The prior 2 seasons with Florida, he had been a very elite first liner, two-way guy, and now that he is balling out, I think going forward he's going to be an 85 to 90 point guy. So you have that great two-way player. Braden Point's also a fantastic two-way center in his own right, and also Stones. This would be maybe your third line checking, but it could obviously still offer a shit ton of goal scoring. I think these guys would play really well together. The only problem is maybe you'd have to throw either Stone or Reinhart on the left wing, which they don't really have much experience playing. So maybe you would opt for a more natural left winger. But I think this line does make a lot of sense, and I think one of them could switch over to the left wing, and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. In terms of the fourth line, maybe I'm a little bit biased, not gonna lie, but I rolled with Marchand, Horvat, and Barzal. Talking again, a two-way defensive line on your fourth line. When I go back to what I do with Team USA, you don't want these absolute firecracker, all offense, no defense guys. So I think it makes a lot of sense to have yet another kind of fourth line, a speedy fourth line like this, with a guy like Barzal, fantastic two-way player, one of the best skaters in the game. Marchand, absolute pest. Horvat, very reliable two-way center. I think, obviously, given the previous chemistry between Barzal and Horvat, this year they've been one of the best duos in the entire NHL, period. One of the best in terms of like 6 through 10 in the NHL. But with Marchand, they would just be, they could cover other countries' first, second lines and absolutely shut them down, in my opinion, while also offering a decent amount of offense. In terms of the defensemen, the first pair, I do think Cale Makar is going to be playing in the 2026 Olympics. He was not there during the 2018 event. I think they are going to let those guys play in international tournaments. Robert Thomas, I believe, was in London, so I think he might actually not be able to play in the tournament. I don't have him on my team, but I think Cale Makar will end up, and not saying they're going to give him a pass, but like, they're going to want Cale Makar to be there. So I think they're going to make an exception, and it makes sense because, again, he wasn't even there for the event. But with your first pair, It's obviously going to be Makar and Taze. Taze is having a bit of a down year in terms of his underlying numbers, but considering this pair has been together for the last 3 years at this point and have been arguably the best pair in the entire NHL, I think you keep this in place given their chemistry and just given how well they work together. Devon Taze, more so the defensive defenseman. Cale Makar gets up and on the play and gets active. So I think you keep these guys together. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Don't change it. Second pair. This one was a little bit interesting. I went with Noah Dobson and Josh Morrissey. Yes, both offensive defensemen. Yes, puck moving defensemen. I just didn't really love any of the defensive defensemen per se, especially right-handed defensive defensemen that Team Canada had to offer. So I think these guys are responsible enough defensively. This is not like Erik Karlsson. They're obviously not as good as Erik Karlsson offensively, but these guys aren't defensive black holes. Morrissey's defensive numbers are much up compared to last year. So I think these guys can work together. Noah Dobson might be the more defensive stay back guy in this thing, which is absolutely crazy to say because he's been a beast this year for the Islanders in terms of getting up on plays. But I think in terms of talent, these guys are probably your third and fourth best defenseman on the team, maybe even second and third, because obviously they're probably going to be better than Devon Taze in 2 years. So I think you throw them on the second pair together. That third pair, I got Evan Bouchard and Vince Dunn. Evan Bouchard has obviously came a long way, really broken out this season, might be going for point per game, 75, maybe 80 points this season. And he's similarly to a Noah Dobson, to a Morrissey. He's playing very good defense. Yes, he does have some lapses from time to time, but I would trust him on a third pair with that offensive flair. Again, they don't really have those fantastic defensive defenseman guys like the U.S. team had with Sanderson and Brock Faber. But I think Bouchard with Vince Dunn does make sense. Vince Dunn has came a long way. He used to be more so of a defensive guy in the St. Louis Blues, but now he has really broken out as an offensive threat. Probably going to go for back-to-back seasons north of 60 points. So this is my third pair for Team Canada. In terms of the goalies, a little bit controversial. There's a bunch of guys you can go with, and I wouldn't tell you you're wrong. I ended up going with Adin Hill and Connor Ingram. They're both pretty young. I think Adin Hill's 27, so not going to be a factor. Connor Ingram just turned 26. He's more so on the younger side. They're both playing fantastic this year. Adin Hill has arguably been the best per game goalie in the entire NHL this season. Obviously, just got hurt for a couple months. And considering we saw this guy in the Stanley Cup, the biggest stage, absolutely ball out for 2.5 rounds for the Vegas Golden Knights en route to the Stanley Cup, you don't have to worry about him in big situations. I look at a guy like Tristan Jarry, who has shat the bed in the playoffs, and I decided to not go with him. Definitely in the goalie tandem. You're going to have to see if he's in the extras, but I decided to not go with him. I decided to go with the big game performer in Adin Hill. In terms of Connor Ingram, has gotten significantly better each of the last 3 years, and I expect going forward, he's going to continue to be around the top 15 goalie in the entire NHL. We'll see how he does under pressure. I hope the Coyotes will make the playoffs either this year, definitely the following year, and we'll get kind of a read on him during playoffs. But I think this goalie tandem, a year ago, it was really bad. These guys have kind of emerged. If you told me a year ago that this would be the goalie tandem, I would say that they're absolutely screwed. But these guys are young. They have emerged, and it's better than the Binnington. I don't even remember who else was in the running. Probably Jarry that we had last year. In terms of extras, I went with Carter Verhaeghe, Shea Theodore, Mark Scheifele, Mackenzie Weegar, and Stuart Skinner. I think you can plug Mackenzie Weegar depending on if he's still an elite two-way guy. I wouldn't hate him plugging him on either the second or the third pair, probably the third pair, maybe even for a Vince Dunn. But right now I did decide to leave him off the roster because he is getting up there in age, but he would probably be my next guy up. In terms of Verhaeghe, I just think he's a Swiss Army knife. You look at him on Florida, I think he's the most underrated player maybe in the entire Eastern Conference. The guy's put up back-to-back seasons of he put up 40 goals last year. I think he's roughly on pace for 40 goals again. Not the most flashy player. There's definitely more flashy guys, but I think in terms of knowing their role, which would probably be a bottom six role if he has to step up, I think he would absolutely thrive in that. Mark Scheifele, playing very good this year, but in terms of defensively, can I trust him in this lineup if he's not going to be in my top six? I don't know about that, but still probably should make the team at this point. Shea Theodore, if one of those left-handed defensemen of Vince Dunn or Josh Morrissey go down, I think he's probably the next guy up in terms of if they need offense. He's been a fantastic offensive defenseman. We'll get into the snubs, but I didn't go with Alex Pietrangelo just because he's going to be 35 years old. Surely he has been slowing down compared to his St. Louis days, but he was fantastic there. But I think by 2026, he's not going to be this elite number one anymore. It's going to be Shea Theodore. And then in net as my backup, I have my backup. I have Stuart Skinner. Obviously, Stuart Skinner, brutal start to this year, but he has massively improved. when looking at him back-to-back seasons, if you ignore that 10-game stretch of pretty damn good goaltending, and he's only 24 or 25 years old, so he's probably going to keep on improving. And I could honestly see him being a part of the goalie tandem or even starting for Team Canada come 2026. In terms of my snubs, I got him up right now. Let's run through them. RNH. I thought about putting RNH in. I thought about maybe even running out the RNH Hyman McDavid line, but I ended up not going with that. Also, Dylan Cousins not having the best year after his breakout. Fantilli, not sure he's going to be an absolute stud in 2 years from now, like a Connor Bedard. Jared McCann, you could put him in for as like an extra for like a Carter Verhaeghe. I wouldn't hate that. Chychrun almost made it. Hamilton doesn't really offer a ton of defense. He's a defensive liability, and if he's not going to be on that top power play, just not going to deal with him. Logan Thompson in net. I think Aiden Hill's just straight up better, and we'll see how it goes. He's still young. He could potentially make it. Tristan Jarry, again, I talked about it. Big game. Not really a big game guy. Thomas Chabot, can make an argument for him as one of those offensive guys. And Robert Thomas, I just didn't include. He would probably be in over a Carter Verhaeghe or Mark Scheifele. I just don't think that he's probably not going to be eligible, considering not involved in the lawsuit, but he was there when it he was in London when it happened. So I think that he might actually remain on that banned list. But let me know in the comments. Let's run through it again. First line, second line, third line, fourth line, first pair, second pair, third pair, goalie tandem, extras. Let me know in the comments. What do you think about this? Am I missing anybody? I don't think I'm egregiously snubbing anybody. I think I mentioned most of those guys in the honorable mentions. But let me know in the comments. What do you think? What team do you want me to do next? Do you want me to do Russia? I feel like people want me to do Russia. Sweden, Finland, Czechia. Let me know in the comments. What do you think? And I'll be seeing you in the next one.